Okay, so we start. All right. By our teacher in the theological training, Prof. Nürnberger, used a picture. He used it for when you plan your research project, but I want to use it for planning a devotion. And he said, sink a shaft and strike gold. Obviously, a picture from mining. So don't dig up everything, but sink one shaft, strike gold. And I think in a devotion, it's important to try and give across one main message, sink one shaft. But of course, if you want to strike gold, you need to do some homework. You need to know a little bit about the geology. You need to know where the gold is. So even a short devotion, 3 to 5 minutes, max 7, I think, needs a little bit of preparation. And a lot of that preparation is your general spiritual growth, the things that you hear, the things that deal with you. But then, of course, there's also the preparation for that particular devotion. Attending training sessions like these are, and all the others we have about the Lutheran theology, about background to the Bible are good. All of those are preparation for any particular devotion you do. As I said, a devotion should try to capture one main thought. It shouldn't just be a rambling about everything and anything that is important to you in the faith, or even just important to you with that particular verse. But try and always have one main thought that can stay with the people. If a devotion is longer than 7 minutes, you're really doing a sermon, and then the rules change. So let's stick to 3 to 5, maximum 7. So what preparation do you need to be able to make sure that this devotion hits home? Obviously, anything on that Bible text, 1 Peter. So knowing a little bit about that letter is a good thing. Reading a little bit of background in a study Bible, not less intense than you would for a sermon, but knowing a little bit about that particular text would be helpful. When we do sermon preparations, we give people a lot of tools, and some of those are useful also when you do devotions. So that if you do lots of devotions, try and invest in a study Bible, which can give you a little bit of background. There are websites which are free. There are 2 now that I use quite often. The one is called Bible Hub, and the other one is called Step Bible. And they have commentaries, they have concordances, they have many things to help you. Then, of course, know something about the center of faith and what motivates you as a Christian, the love of God revealed in Jesus Christ. And this should always come across in any message. The central thread should always be the love of God. When I teach preaching, I use the little, my model for sermon preparation has got the name, I should transmit God's love. And it speaks of the different parts of the preparation, the I, the S, the T, the G, the L. But the main thing is that all of our messages, even if we try and challenge people, it should always be in love. And that love of God should be there as a center in every devotion we do. Whether we comfort, whether we challenge, whether we encourage. And sometimes we have to admonish to say this or that is perhaps wrong. But always everything should be done in love. Everything should transmit God's love. So that will be the center. And then important is obviously the text. That's what I call the T. And then, of course, the situation you are speaking into. And I think that is what I want to focus in this particular training session. The question: who are you speaking? Who is this devotion for? And depending on who I have in front of me, obviously, what I say on one text will be different. This morning, I knew I was speaking to people who want to be trained to do devotions. So I know who I have in front of me. I know these are people who are committed in their congregation. This is not an evangelistic message. It's not to people who don't yet know if they have faith. These are committed people. You are committed people. This is to encourage. This is to strengthen, to equip. And that will be, so if I have we always start our council meetings with a devotion. There I again have committed congregants in front of me. It'll be different if I'm now doing a devotion at a senior's birthday or at a youth group, or the one that I always find a bit more difficult at the German school, where I have believers and non-believers in front of me. That is one that takes a lot more preparation than that devotion for committed congregants. So I need to know who I have in front of me. So when I start preparing a devotion, it's important to know who I have in front of me. And perhaps you are being given a text, or perhaps you need to choose a text. Now, if I know who I have in front of me and I need to choose a theme or a text, that is sometimes more difficult. And there I find the biggest friend is the daily texts. I think most of you probably have a version in some language of the watchwords. Now, this morning, for example, I knew who I had in front of me. I knew more or less what I would like to say. And then I needed to find a text that might convey something of that. So this morning, I just stop the video. How did I decide what I wanted to speak on this morning? I basically took the daily texts and I paged through them. The text for today didn't speak to me. I couldn't make the connection between the group and the verse. I looked at the watchword for this week. I looked at the watchword for next week. And then I saw the watchword for tomorrow. And that was the one I then chose. In our congregational council, we usually just take the watchword for the day, and it is easier because it's every month, and that is just the pattern. But even there, sometimes I've said, it's not quite what I want to say. Let me take another verse. But the watchwords are definitely, at least for me, the easiest place to start to look for a text. Or obviously, you probably have your favorite texts, and sometimes you say, I'm going to be speaking in this group, and you already know, it's very easy to know what text you will take. The German school, for example, when I know it's scholars or whole range of ages and also the teachers, but I will be mainly speaking to the scholars. I will be speaking to a lot of people who don't come from Christian homes. I need to think a little bit more deeply about what can speak to them. And of course, the more you know about what life is like as a young person, and it's changed a lot since I was young, so I find it sometimes difficult to relate to. But trying to find some theme that will latch on to to their reality. The one I've chosen now, I'm speaking there again on Monday, is the theme of time, and I will take the verse, my times are in your hands, particularly at the end of the year when time starts to either race or drag because they want to be on holiday already. This is a theme that latches onto their reality and is something that I can use to explain something about what it means that our time is in God's hands, and perhaps find some way of linking their reality to the reality of faith. Another example I just want to briefly, that was also took me a lot more thought, was when I was asked to do the devotion at the AGM of the Baby Therapy Center. The people who were there, those were volunteers helping, giving their time to a good cause. There were parents who have disabled children. There were staff. And then I needed to find some way, obviously the theme of healing, the theme of caring. There I had keywords that I could look at in a concordance, try and find a verse that makes sense. I want us to do an exercise now. And I want to give you one scenario at a time and just give you a couple of moments to think, and then just throw out maybe themes, maybe verses that you think might be useful in that particular setting. Okay. So the first is, I think, a fairly straightforward one. Imagine yourself in a congregation like Nelspruit or anywhere where there's no pastor. One long-standing congregant turns 80, and you are being asked to do the devotion. Okay, so just think briefly, and anyone can just say, I would speak about this verse, maybe say ABC, just very brief. You don't have a lot of time. Anyone want to volunteer? 80-year-old in your congregation, and you are being asked to do a birthday devotion. Anyone want to volunteer? I'm sure you've all done birthday devotions or been to birthday devotions. Otherwise, I'm going to ask someone to respond, but I prefer volunteer. Hands up.
Can I say?
Yes, hands up.
You mentioned the verse, my time is in your hands. And that was a verse that was very often used in the German branch of Transworld Radio, where I worked a number of years. And we have to learn to speak to people about death, about the end of things, and that our time is in God's hands, irrespective of what we do.
Thank you. I think that would be a very fitting verse for an 80th birthday. Anyone want to suggest another one?
Yeah, if I may come in, I think part of today's text, which is in Job, the last chapter. I think I would give verse 12 of the last chapter, which says, "The Lord blessed the last part of Job's life even more than we bless the first one. Just because this person has got 8 years, it means he has sort of been given more than the average age, and I think it's a blessing from God.
Okay, so most 80-year-olds have probably gone through difficult patches, just like Job. So I think one can speak about that. But at the end of Job's life, there is that blessing. Yeah, thank you very much. But one doesn't, especially if one takes Job, one is honest about the difficult roads that some people have traveled. Thank you. Anyone else? Maybe at least one more. Naomi?
Love of God, that God loves us so much that he determines, he's the only one who knows up to when will we be in this world. Starting with respect for your parents, one would suspect that the 80-year-old was very respectful to the parents, because it says respect your mother and father so that your days can be lengthened on earth.
Okay, so that's thinking back. But I think one just needs to be careful there. It's not a long life, it's not a reward for having been good. But I think it is a gift of God. A lot of people who don't make 80 who were very respectful to their parents. But I think that, yeah, if you want to use that verse, I think God promises blessing for the way we live. But mostly the blessing is undeserved. Blessing is just a free gift. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah, and if you want to speak, let's say about the love of God, you want a verse that expresses something of that, and you haven't, most of us don't have all of in our heads. They ask, come on, there's a verse on this. There is what we call the concordance. There are books, but nowadays you can get it online. If you, let's say the BibleHub.com, at the top there is a search engine, and if you just put love of God in there, and you'll find lots of verses, and you can scroll through them and maybe find the one that you are looking for. Or the word blessing, for example. I often like to use the word blessing on birthdays. There are a lot of verses, Old and New Testament, on which have the word blessing in it. So you can type that in to the search engine there, and you can find many verses. Okay, let's take the next scenario. There has been some devastating event, riots, floods, fires, you name it, COVID. And in the week after that, you are being asked to do a devotion with a group of young working adults, in a Bible study group or whatever. And you are wanting to give some meaning to something that has really shaken people up. Lolita, do you want to volunteer? Or did you still have something for the last issue?
It was for the last issue, but I'm just quickly looking up for this one. I must just get the Bible verse.
Share what you wanted to say for the last one.
I would speak on wisdom. There's a verse in Job 12 that says the wisdom of the grandfathers and the verstand. What is verstand in English?
Understanding, I think they usually use, yeah.
Of the fathers, that old people often feel that they're not needed anymore, and they are just a burden for the young people. And if you tell that to the old people, they will get some courage again because they are still worth something.
Yeah, they have the understanding and the deep wisdom often that we
Yes,
desperately
yes.
need. Yes, thank you for that, sharing that.
And can I
Okay,
just add
anyone
for this one now?
Yeah.
I will never leave you nor forsake you in Deuteronomy 31. I think is a good one if you're in the middle or just over a disaster, that you know that God is always with you.
Yeah. Or
Um,
if you pass through fire, or if you pass through water, the Isaiah one. Yes, thank you very much. That the presence of God through the suffering, I think, is the most important thing. Yes. Anyone else want to suggest?
I will talk about
Yeah.
the Lord is on my side, I will not fear, and which is in the book of Psalms 118, because more I will put emphasis to say that God's presence is in our situation. It does not mean to be in good times or bad, but even in the current situations that we are, the presence of God. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
From
do not
me,
fear. And that is, again, something, if you're not sure where you find a verse, you can put in fear or do not fear into a concordance. And you will find a lot of verses that have that as theme.
it open for me. Hello.
Bella, yes?
My verse reference comes from Deuteronomy 15, verse 11. It goes, the poor shall not escape from the land. Therefore, I command you to open your hands to your brothers, to the needy, to the poor in the land, which is a great commandment in times of disaster.
Yeah, and often, thank you for that. And often people get new hope when they actually start to do something, help in a practical way those who've really been directly affected by that disaster. It actually gives people hope to be able to effect a change. Yes, I think challenging people to try and find a way around that. Thank you. Anyone more about this one?
Yeah, from my side, I don't have the exact verse, but what I've observed is that usually when something bad happens, people want to understand how could God have let this happen? Where was God at that time? So I think for me, then I would look for something that speaks around that. Thank you.
Okay, that's a challenge. I mean, it's always difficult to answer the question why, and I think we need to accept that mostly we will not get an answer to why did God allow this now. But I think to actually say we believe God is in control, we believe God has a good end for our lives. But we will probably not be able to explain exactly why did God allow this now? And most of the answers that people do give to that and think they have an answer to that is often it doesn't completely satisfy. And I think we just need to say that in this world we probably won't get a satisfying answer to why. And Ariadi?
I took Psalm 91, verse 4-6. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that walk in the darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste at noondays. But coming back to what you said, we as Christians as well, Our faith helps us because we must not think because we are Christians, disasters will not happen. God has a
Exactly,
reason
yeah.
why he's doing that, and there will be answers. Thank you.
Yeah. And I often say, you know, and also in conversations, I believe we will understand one day, but not necessarily this side of death. But I believe there is a reason, and I believe that we will know one day. And I think that that's just a statement of faith that one can share. Yeah, anyone last attempt? Yeah, Naomi? You want to speak, Naomi?
Oh, no, sorry, I forgot to put
Okay.
my... Sorry.
So that, okay. Yeah, one last one for this round. You are in a Bible study group, devotion, and the pastor of the congregation has just announced he or she is leaving, and now you suddenly sort of are a bit disorientated, facing a vacancy. I think a lot of congregations have been in that situation, and you want to say something into this situation. I think some of the verses we've already mentioned would work, but let's just see if anyone else has a suggestion.
Yes, I don't know if I'm still on the line. But what I would share, what I would share with the pastor, I would share 2 Timothy 1:7. For God had not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Why this verse? That's because every time when someone is leaving us, going to a new place, we always left with the spirit of fear of who will close this gap, who will do 1 and 2 and 3. But if the person was doing his work with love and of unsound mind, that means through his time or through her times of serving, she has shared what shall we do when she no longer there or she gets a new job somewhere. So that the verse I will share. I don't know if I'm still in line there.
Yeah, we're hearing you, and thank you. That's a very very powerful testimony there. Thank you. Steve?
I would think we could use Jeremiah 29 verse 11, which says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future."
One of my favorite verses. And yeah, that would really fit into speaking into a congregation that suddenly says, well, what's next? Where are we going now? Yeah, so there are many ways. I think often you will be faced with a situation and you will immediately, a verse will pop into your mind, and that's right. But if you're struggling to find what is the best, then yeah, do use the page through the watchwords. Sometimes it takes a while and you say, oh, that's the verse that really speaks into the situation. Or use the concordance, type in hope, type in do not fear, type in blessing, type in encouragement, or whatever, a verse that you think this is what I want to convey, and then see. And it's amazing sometimes the wealth of verses that then comes up, and maybe a verse that speaks to you in a way that you've never really heard before. So I would encourage you not to just keep regurgitating your own favorite verses. Sometimes I know I do that too. I stick with the Psalms for birthdays or for when I visit the sick. But sometimes it's good to actually go a little bit beyond that, dig a little bit, find something that says something that maybe you haven't thought of or said before. We all have our stock of favorites, and it's good to have those and to use them. But it's also good to challenge ourselves to move beyond our own favorite store. One more exercise, the other way around. I'm now going to give you the verse and then different situations. How do those then fit together? And I want to use the watchword for the Sunday past. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Matthew 5, verse 9. I won't read it again. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Matthew 5, verse 9. What would you say, if this is your verse, what would you say to a group of seniors about this verse? Just a couple of thoughts that strike you when you think of you're thinking of a group of seniors and you want to speak about, let's say that's the watchword for the day or for the month, for the week. Anyone who Benjamin, can you speak now? I haven't given you a chance yet. Are you with us?
Benjamin said that his device is giving him difficulty, so
Okay. He's still with us. I hope he hears us at least.
but he cannot speak.
Okay. Anyone want to volunteer? Blessed are the peacemakers. We are in a time of war. Any volunteer?